Everyone has done it. You're alone, no audience, no phone call, and suddenly you say something out loud. Maybe it's a whisper, maybe it's a full sentence, maybe it's a debate you didn't realize escaped your head, and the moment you notice it, the thought hits you even louder. Is something wrong with me? Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. The people who don't talk to themselves often assume the people who do are broken, unstable, distracted, a little off. But psychology tells a completely different story. And once you hear it, you'll never see your inner dialogue the same way again. Because talking to yourself isn't a flaw, it's a signal. And not everyone has it. Now let's rewind for a second. Think about the last time you caught yourself doing it. Maybe you were solving a problem. Maybe you were stressed. Maybe you were looking for something and muttering its name under your breath. Notice something important. You weren't confused. You weren't lost. You were actively processing. That's the first clue. According to psychology facts, the human brain doesn't process all thoughts the same way. Some minds can keep ideas floating silently. Others move so fast that silence becomes a bottleneck. For people who talk to themselves, thoughts don't drift. They collide, they stack, they demand structure. So the brain does something fascinating. It externalizes the thought. Not because it's weak, but because it's overloaded with depth. Psychologists call this cognitive offloading. And here's the twist. High performers do it more often than average. When you speak a thought out loud, you turn something abstract into something concrete. It stops being fog. It becomes an object you can examine. That's why when you hear yourself say something, it suddenly sounds clearer, or wrong, or brilliant. You aren't just thinking, you're auditing your own mind. Most people let thoughts swirl unchecked. You don't. But here's where it gets even more interesting, because this habit shows up most when the stakes are high. Stress, decision-making, problem-solving. Ever notice how you start talking to yourself more when something really matters? That's not anxiety. That's regulation. Psychology facts show that self-directed speech activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning, focus, and control. In other words, when you talk to yourself, you're literally switching on your executive system. That's why athletes do it before a play, why surgeons do it during procedures, why high-level thinkers verbalize steps instead of trusting memory. They're not unsure, they're precise. But here's the part most people miss, and this is where the misunderstanding begins. From the outside, it looks unnecessary, odd, even chaotic. From the inside, it's the opposite. It's order. When you say, okay, first this, then that, you're not narrating life. You're creating a roadmap your brain can follow. And brains that need roadmaps are often brains that operate at higher speeds. But speed without direction can be dangerous. Which brings us to the next layer. Talking to yourself doesn't just organize thoughts, it controls emotion. Psychologists have found that people who use self-talk during stressful moments recover faster emotionally. Why? Because language creates distance. When you say calm down, think, you're separating yourself from the feeling. You're stepping into the role of observer instead of victim. That's advanced emotional regulation. Most people drown in emotion. You label it, and labeling something gives you power over it. But now comes the question most viewers are already thinking. If this is such a strength, why does it feel embarrassing? Because society equates silence with normalcy, invisibility with weakness. Talking to yourself breaks the illusion that thinking is effortless. It exposes the work. And people are uncomfortable watching effort they don't understand. So they mock it, dismiss it, pathologize it. But psychology facts don't lie. Self-directed speech is associated with higher problem-solving ability, improved focus, and stronger emotional control. Still, there's one more reason this habit exists, and it's the one that separates average intelligence from something sharper. Because when you talk to yourself, you're not just reacting, you're training your mind. And once you understand how that training works, you'll realize this habit might be doing more for you than you ever imagined. But that part of the psychology is rarely talked about, and slightly unsettling.